You're visiting the Mom Next Door and our stories of faith. I'm glad you dropped by for a visit. Please stay a while and hear what the Lord has done in the lives of moms just like you and me. Hi, friends. You found the Mom Next Door Stories of Faith. And if you've been around for a while, you know how much I love to make new friends. Well, it is my delight to introduce you to another boy mom. Now, neither of us only have boys. I have 5 boys and 4 girls, and Kim has 2 boys and 2 girls. But we both submitted stories about raising our sons to a book called Life in the Estrogen-Free Zone, and our articles were accepted. And so it's kind of been fun getting to know the other authors within this book. We've all submitted stories about just raising our boys, what it looked like. And I think that if you get a hold of this book, you're going to find encouragement for today. If you have little ones or if you have big ones, it may take you on a walk down memory lane. I know that in our group, somebody posted a picture of a 95-year-old woman reading this book. And boy, I can imagine just looking back many years from now and thinking through all the years of raising our sons. What a challenge, what a joy, good memories, crazy memories. So anyway, we're glad you're here with us today. And Kim, I would just love if you take a second to introduce me to your family.
Okay, that would be great. Well, my name is Kim Cusimano. I live just outside of Oklahoma City, so I'm an Okie. Sometimes it comes through the accent. Sometimes I hide it a little bit better. I've been married to my husband, Joe, for 31 years as of last week. And we have 4 now all adult, young adult children. We chose to build our family through adoption many years ago. And because I'm kind of a symmetrical person and we got to choose, we went with 2 boys and 2 girls. And so we've got it even around here. And we've launched 1 boy and 1 girl. And then we have 1 son and 1 daughter that reside in our home with some differing abilities or special needs. And so, yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Well, you did that symmetrically, didn't you? Like,
I've had some practice.
Yeah. But you know what? Doesn't it seem like there are definite limits to how much symmetry and organization we can have in our lives?
Absolutely.
Our kids are so different and
Yes.
they teach us so much. We learn to be mixing it up all the time and a life of adventure. And that is what you talked about in this book. So I don't know today what we're going to talk about. We're just going to jump in. In the book, you talked about your 2 sons that
Yes.
are of very differing abilities. Now you just mentioned your daughter also has a little bit different ability. So the other thing that I noticed in reading your chapter in the book is that you also have a military kiddo. And so that's another level. I actually, when I went through and I was reading your chapter, I was like, oh, well, we could talk about this and we could talk about that. And there's so many different things. But I would just like to jump in and hear your heart and maybe a bit of your faith story as you added children into your home and what that looked like as each one of them came in, maybe a little bit about interactions as you how old were each one of them when you brought them home and all those things.
Yeah, I would love to share about that. They each, of course, were kind of a God story in their own adoption story.
I bet.
And they were from infants around 7 months old to just over a year old. Our youngest one came home when she was 14 months old. And so the first 3, we were able to celebrate their birthdays. And that last one, we still celebrated anyway, but we missed it just by a few weeks. All of our children came home to us from Korea. They were Korean adoptees. And over the years, we've had fun. It's just a fun aspect to add to our family life, studying some Korean heritage. They would go to a adoptive heritage camp in the summer. And I have acquired a taste for bulgogi, not so much kimchi, but I can eat bulgogi all day with the best of them. And so just adding another heritage to our family has been fun. When we adopted our first son, we knew that he was a special needs baby. And my husband was hesitant. He said, what do we know about taking care of a little guy with he has something called charge syndrome or charge association. And like a lot of syndromes, it has a lot of different facets to it. But the gist of it was his right eye had not developed in utero. And so when we found out about him on this special needs adoptive list, it literally said in print, he has no right eye. And it ended up he had a little malformed little right eye, and he had a heart defect, and he had a kidney defect, and so forth and so on. And how God brought him to be right in front of us for us to read his description. And at first, my husband would not like to, he would probably deny this to this day, but he just said, I don't think we should. And as it turned out, God had other plans. And as my husband saw his little picture over the course of weeks, God began to change his heart. And one day he said, why don't we go ahead and call about that little boy with the one eye? And so looking back and knowing my husband's personality, I'm still surprised to this day that we jumped in with both feet and we did it. And I know it was just God's leadership and God's provision. And in those early days, we worried about everything. We worried about his, everything about his health and so on and so forth. And as we began to just settle into the joy of having him as our son, we got more and more brave. And so even all of our children came under some kind of special needs label, but some of it didn't. Even our son now, who is a Navy officer, he had kind of this at-risk label put on him that didn't end up being, of any significance. And then on the other side, we adopted one of our daughters, a similar label as our other son. She was at risk because of some birth history, medical history. And it ended up when she was about age 4, we realized that she had more significant issues than our son, her oldest brother, who had been born with this syndrome. But it wasn't as physical. It wasn't physical. She had inherited some severe mental illness. She was diagnosed with onset childhood schizophrenia by age 7. And then as she has aged, they've added some labels. She has some autistic traits and so forth and so on. And now she is 25. And she takes, you might say, around the clock care. That doesn't mean she can't watch a movie by herself or something like that, but she does not function as a functioning adult. And so she takes pretty much full-time care. And then our son, who had the syndrome, who we just worried about every breath he took, he works part-time. He likes to do Elvis impersonations as his hobby. He's got just a huge personality. And so what we learned in all 4 of our children were God knew the end story. And he knew enough not to tell us the complete story before. And it certainly took some steps of faith, but it has been our joy for sure.
Wow. That right there is a story. And I bet you we could do a podcast on each one of their individual, how you got them here, because I know, especially international adoption can be so complicated. God's hand has had to be all over that.
Absolutely. It was.
So you probably won't even ever be an empty nester, right?
We don't plan on it.
Yeah.
And sometimes as I've done some writing and speaking, that is one of the things that I like to write or speak about is encouraging special needs parents.
Yeah.
And I've written a little article like No Empty Nest Here.
Yeah.
And it's just something that my husband and I are committed to. I used to say committed to for their lifetime, but really in reality, it's committed to our children for our lifetime.
Yeah.
And our special needs high functioning son may at some point live independent of us. He would be a great candidate for a group home or a roommate or something like that. But our daughter would probably always be with us for our lifetime. So now that our son, who is in the Navy, and our youngest, who is our daughter, who's a sophomore in college this year, as they are launching, now my husband and I are adjusting to not being 2 of us as we age and go towards retirement, but to plan for 4 of us.
Yeah.
And it used to get me down. It's funny how if we keep our own selves in center, kind of a self-centeredness, it can be a woe is me. But even in this last year, God kept impressing on me a phrase, my God-given responsibilities, my God-given responsibilities. And as I started to put that in the forefront of my mind, it has brought me a lot more joy and delight. You know how a lot of times we say, Lord, what do you want me to do? Lord, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And a lot of times it's right in front of us. We may already be doing it. And that's one thing I feel about, even as I used to be a teacher by career before we adopted our children. But as the years have gone by and our special needs daughter graduated high school, I'm certainly at home with her. That's how I spend my days. Anna and I spend our days together. And now as I start seeing it as the opportunity each day to live out the God-given responsibilities God's given me. And you know what? Now, sometimes if Anna and I want to go to Mazio's and have the pizza buffet at lunch, we do it because that is part of my God-given responsibility at this season in my life, is to spend my days taking care of Anna. And so it has changed my perspective even recently. And my husband and I are certainly in this season as some of our friends are going on Alaskan cruises. They're going to Italy. They're doing all kinds of things. And I've been careful to even tell my husband, let's keep a bucket list. We have a good support system. We have a loving family. It's like, let's not give up the bucket list, but we may have to alter it. We don't have 10 international trips in our bucket list, but we each have chosen a place that we're keeping in those buckets. Like my husband wants to do a European Viking cruise. And by God's grace, I mean, that's his big bucket. So there's not tons of trips in the bucket, but there's one. But every day outside of that is still a blessing from the Lord, and we're going to enjoy it thoroughly, even with making some adjustments along the way.
Well, I'm picturing in my mind a young mom that I know, and it's so an altering of your mindset when you get that diagnosis and you realize that you probably will have your kiddos with you as you age, as they age and into adulthood. And I think so much, there's a lot of ideology or verbiage in motherhood of saying, you just got to make it through 18 years. Just hold out 18 years and then you have your time back and they'll be off doing their own thing. And it's not that way for everybody. And it does require a certain mindset change and an acceptance in that. So I think that is beautiful, the way that you're seeing that. I think that when we become moms, we sometimes have this idea that our life has stopped because all we have to do is do stuff at home. And that's not real ministry. That's not really working for the Lord. And so we kind of think we need to put these kiddos in childcare on the back burner so that we can go do the real work that God has for us. And I think what you're telling us is to embrace what is in front of us. We don't have to look far, far away and go chase after something when there's somebody right in front of us that we can invest our lives in. And that God has called us to minister to those that he's put around us, right?
That's right. And Pam, I've also realized that there are sometimes, like you said, we seem to bring so much preconceived ideas into motherhood and marriage and probably into all areas of our life. But sometimes if we just make a shift, like when I think of ministry years ago, I'd be involved in, say, like a women's ministry team at my church. It was a long-term commitment. It was ongoing. It was outside of my home generally. And now I've made some shifts. For example, I don't make as many like long-term commitments where I may commit to a committee or something or so forth for a year or something like that. But now I do a lot of things that I call one and done. If they need someone to bring paper towels to the children's ministry at church, that suits me perfectly. I'll bring all the paper towels they need. And so I've learned to shift how I go about ministry. And the other thing is realizing that Anna can do certain things with me. And there are two ways I've shifted in just the last few years as she's been out of her public school years. One is we sometimes drop something off at someone's home. I mean, we're still going to the grocery store together, and it allows me to drop something off to a friend who's just had surgery or something like that. One year, a couple of years ago at fall, I know it was fall season because I bought some little hot chocolate and mugs, and I had a couple friends going through some things. Well, Anna can ride with me in the car all day long. That's no problem. We do errands all the time. So I just put together a few little gift things, and her and I drove around town and put them in their, like on their porches or something. And my daughter was with me the whole time. This fall, I'm going to try something I've not done yet, but I'm excited about it. And I'm going to invite a small group into my home weekly. I'm going to start light with probably a book discussion group, but Anna can be at home while a few ladies and I, we may start out, if we can get out of this heat in Oklahoma that we've been in recently. And when this airs, hopefully it'll already be a little cooler out there, but we can, as ladies, they can sit on my patio. Anna might be in the kitchen doing a craft, or she might be watching a movie. I can still meet with there's nothing stopping me from inviting people to my home. So now what I do is not so much out, but in. It may not be as long-term, but I can do lots of ones and dones. And so as I've made those kinds of practical shifts, it has really changed my perspective in many ways of ministry.
I think that one and done is kind of been my approach. I've never thought about it with a label like that or had a name for it at all. But I think in my years of mothering lots of little children, it was huge to commit to go somewhere and do something. You never know, because you never know if somebody's going to get sick. You never know, if somebody's going to have a meltdown, and then you have to reverse everything, and you've just left somebody hanging up on the other end. So yeah, I always liked those opportunities to do picking up supplies and donating them, and maybe even dropping them off the week before, so that if something happened in our family, it wasn't waiting on us. So I think that is really applicable to a lot of situations. And that's creatively addressing and looking at that. What can I do here? It doesn't mean I have to be immobilized and I'm no longer able to, it's not that I'm no longer able to contribute. I can contribute. It just looks different, right?
And this does apply to so many of us as women. I am surprised at the age I am now I will not say, I refuse to say mid 50s, because at 54, I'm not going to say the word mid yet, but in my early 50s, even seeing many of my friends now begin to care for their aging parents. And we've all heard that we're going in this time of a sandwich generation where it is not just caring for children. And I had a friend, she had 5 little girls. Her father was already deceased, but then she was helping care for her mother. And she referenced that a few times. Here I am in this sandwich generation. And then caregiving can, even meeting people who they're taking care of a spouse as they age. Maybe one of them has serious health issues. So to encourage all of us, not to say just moms with young children, we may be a mom with young children. We may be a special needs mom. We may be a mom with children and helping aging parents. We may be helping a spouse. In fact, the older I get, the fewer people I can exclude, because so many of us have multiple responsibilities. And recognizing and even giving each other grace. If you are the lady who heads up homeroom moms at school, and you're looking for the volunteers, or you're the lady who heads up a women's ministry team at church, sometimes if there's a lady on your heart, we don't want to go to either extreme. We don't want to exclude them from participating, like, oh, she's got so much on her plate, because it can be a blessing sometimes to get an opportunity to do something outside of your normal caregiving. But also to know that they may not be the person that can do the weekly coffee making before Bible study.
Yeah.
And so that you offer, I know that you're taking care of your mother. I know that you're taking care of your husband. Would you like to bring the cleaning supplies that we need or this or that? Because it's nice to be included, but with the understanding we can only do what we can do in that season.
A lot of times this comes back to the same thing, is that instead of us being the planner of all the details of our lives and all of our day, it's when we submit to say, Heavenly Father, what do you want for me today?
That's
How
right.
do you want me to work through the relationships that I have around me, the community that you've put me in church, in school groups, in my neighborhood, and all that? I think if we did that, our feathers would not get ruffled quite so easily, right?
That's right.
I know sometimes when I have certain expectations in my mind and it doesn't turn out that way, I get kind of irritated and I'm like, oh, I'm in the penalty phase. This thing did not, why? But instead, if I have more of an open attitude and just let the Lord plan my days, I'm going to be a happier person. Right?
That's right. I think you're right, Pam. I think we bring on a lot of our frustrations ourselves. And looking back, and actually none of my children played soccer in particular, but when we use the phrase soccer mom sometimes, and I think we do sometimes in jest in our culture about sports moms and that busy season of life with children where we run them here and there and all over. And a lot of times we heap more extra on ourselves by our own choice, by our own choosing. Not that other people have heaped things on us, but we've signed up a few too many times. We've committed to a few too many things. We've complicated some of our own logistics when it's our responsibility to simplify and do what fits within our time and our family.
Yeah. How have you been able to find a respite in with managing all your people and find ways where you can refresh and renew?
I started looking at our home differently. And as we moved into a different home about 5 years ago, and we kind of joke that maybe I'm just becoming an old flower lady, possibly. But as I age, how much more I enjoy being outside. And some of it, I told my husband, I said, things like sitting on the patio or being in my little garden area, that is a kind of respite. And I've told other special needs parents, if you have a child or someone that's with you all the time that you're caring for, choose a place in your home. It may be that you put a chair in your master bedroom where you hadn't had one. It may be if you feel like you need a new patio set, find one that's in your budget. Find a used one, order one, whatever you need to do, but get something new for your patio that you can set out there. If you have space in your yard to garden or to maybe use some other kind of creative space. I said one time to a group, if your husband likes golf or you like golf, DIY a putting green, for goodness sakes. You can probably do it for $9.99. I mean, pull up Pinterest. Think outside of the box to create respite within your own home that you can access actually every day. And so if you need to upgrade your patio, do it. If you need to upgrade your yard, do it. If you need to upgrade your master bedroom, do it. Those things are not so much luxury as they are necessities for your family to function well and for you to function well and in a healthy way. So now most mornings I drink my coffee on the patio, hopefully not just because I'm becoming an old lady who likes to look at my flowers and have my coffee on the patio. But my daughter often will go back and lay down in the mornings after she takes some of her morning medicine. And I don't go around my house doing so much other house chores at that time because I can sit outside while she's resting in her room. And so I take that time to do that. I can do house chores while she's active around the house in the day. And so separate out also those important times that you can reserve. And if you need to take a day to actually concentrate on this kind of plan, what can you upgrade? Where can you sit? What time is the best in your day? take a day and it will bless you to start to figure out what will work for you in this area.
I think that, again, you're bringing that truth in that I think that's another mindset that you're reminding me of, is that it's not an extravagance, that, God made us to be people who can rest and find peace and focus on him. And if our life is so chaotic, then our nerves are like shattered all the time. We're just ramped up. And it's really hard to be able to focus on the people around us and to pour out. But if we are able to, you hear this, you can't pour from an empty cup. But if our cup is constantly being filled, then it makes it a little more easy to continue pouring out.
Yes.
And that, again, is the case in whatever our stage of life, whatever our stages of our children's lives and circumstances like that. If we could just find a way to continue being filled so that we can share and continue to pour out.
That's right. And Pam, if I can add one more thing along that lines, we are in charge also of the stimulus that we let come into our home. And because my daughter can watch movies and things like that, our TV is on quite a bit, but I'm much more careful. It gets late afternoon and the local news and stuff starts coming on. And especially if something's happened in the world where it's just bombarding our news for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
I've learned in recent years to turn a lot of that off.
Yeah.
It's not because I don't care. A lot of times I'll whisper prayers over if there's, a group of people, if they're, their little town 500 miles from here has been hit by a tornado or something. Of course I care, and I can take time to whisper a prayer for those people, but I cannot carry weight on top of my God-given responsibilities every day. And even as my daughter is a person that deals with mental illness, and there's many things that go into that. And everybody that may have a loved one that struggles with mental illness, it can look different for everyone. But we have some days that can be kind of dark around here. She can be mumbling to herself. Some of her stories may be kind of dark, that are just things she's hearing only to herself. But we hear her side as she's mumbling and talking to herself. But I don't need to invite other things like difficult news stories to run in my living room for 2 hours on end. And I've said to friends, even who are news buffs, and some people are news buffs and that's part of their hobby, and they can enjoy that. But at the point they start feeling the weight of listening to news, and we all know that our culture is becoming increasingly more complicated, more complex, more intense in our political scene and so forth and so on. I would encourage moms and us as women, reduce some of that stimulus that comes into your home that just adds weight on top of other responsibilities.
I think that is excellent advice. Excellent. And it does affect us. I noticed years ago, I have this way. I've always wanted to be a mom who's praying for my children, but I recognized that I wasn't doing a great job of it. I was so highly distractible. I just wasn't doing a great job. And so years ago, I kind of developed this idea. I put alphabet beads on some stretchy string with beads, and each child has their name on their own bracelet. And in the morning, I put their bracelet on my left arm. And as I remember to pray for them, I move it onto my right arm. And that just reminds me to not get off track, right? We get so busy, and the people that need us the most draw us away from getting our to-do list done, and often sometimes interrupt us in our prayer time or devotional time. But you know what I noticed is when I would get in the car to drive, my hands were up on the steering wheel, and I'm looking at my wrist with all these bracelets on it, and it would remind me to pray for my kids. Well, what did that make me do? I had to turn off my radio, and I wasn't listening to all the noise. And sometimes it's good to turn on praise music and just, go in that direction. But a lot of what I was listening to was anxiety driving,
Yes.
And so when I then, and I didn't even make the conscious choice to turn off the news and turn off those things that made my anxiety rise. I just happened to put these bracelets on, and then they were in front of my eyes. And I thought, oh, I should pray and turn off the radio. And I noticed the result was my focus was better. My prayer life was a lot better. And not only praying for my children, but the world around them and their friends and all the ministries that we were involved in. But yeah, limiting all of that from the outside, because we do live in, is it a small world now or is it a big world now? Like,
I would argue smaller. I feel like even the weight of other countries comes into my living room at times. So I would go with smaller.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know that God designed us to be in the micro involved in places that are everywhere.
Right.
It comes at us so fast from so many places. It's just so much to absorb.
Right. Not to mention our phones, our phones in conjunction with like our TV really can bring the whole world to us in just minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a lot. I think it's a lot. And I think we would all say in the last few years, it's just felt like it's multiplied more. The news and the needs of the world. And we are not capable nor responsible for bringing all of it into our homes.
Well, I hope that no matter what stage of life anyone is in, you are tracking with us here. We're both in our early 50s, let's say that, right? And
we look good. I know your listeners can't see us, but I can see Pam on the screen. Hey, ladies, we look good.
I was going to say something about hair dye. I don't know if I should say something about hair dye. But
I will say nothing about hair dye. Let's just say that.
We are old enough to know what our resources are and how we can utilize them best, right?
Yes.
And sometimes it takes a few decades of practice before, we can recognize where we need to shift and pivot. And so I think in my early mom years, I just ran around pretty stressed out. And I had this idea of this perfect life and making sure everything was done correctly. And I didn't want to make any mistakes. And what if I make a mistake, what's going to happen to my child later? And it's not that we're saying, or I'm saying, to throw all caution to the wind and just do whatever. But I think that we can learn to relax a little bit and to not be so stressed out. And to do that, it might mean you sit on your porch. You might, the word we like to say around our house is, I just need some time to putter around. I just need to, get my little morning routine done. And it does look different now than it looked when everybody was little. But I would encourage, no matter what stage of life, to find some of those habits and routines that are life-giving for you.
I feel in some ways having my special needs daughter has taught me lessons of how to reduce more, because I do much less. I probably am much less productive than I used to be. And you would think that the world would fall down around me, but it does not. As I've pared down responsibilities, it's been very freeing. And our mornings, because she does take some medication in the morning that makes her sleepy right after she takes it, I don't make like morning doctor's appointments and things like that. Not that may be great for someone else's schedule, but for me, my mornings have become quieter as I am careful what appointments and things I put in the morning. And you would think that maybe that would have been a negative impact, but it's become a great part of my routine that my mornings are quieter than they used to be. And I don't add to that time. I actually have come to protect it. It's good for my daughter and it's good for me, even for, if we want to say respite or just my energy and my schedule with her. And so I think sometimes we just so fear paring down, and we do talk about decluttering our home some, but not always so much our mind and quieting our soul. And that actually would be so much more worth our time, even though keeping our environment decluttered helps us with stress. but that we can declutter in so many other ways, and it would serve us and our family so well.
Well, what a delight your children are to you, I know. And I'm sure that they're constantly teaching you things. The Lord uses those around us to refine us and make us more like Him.
I agree.
As we start to wrap up, I know you have a website and you're on some of the social media sites. So people are going to be able to go to the show notes and click on any of those. But why don't you tell us where we can find you?
Sure. My website is fulljoyministries.com. And on Instagram, it's Kimberly_Cusimano. And I'm on Facebook at Kim.Cusimano.79. And I do tend to interact on Facebook probably more than Instagram. That's probably that age 54 thing going on. But
yeah,
hey, I'm coming along. And then I have a personal email of Kim@Cusimano.us.
Okay.
So you can find me in any of those places.
Okay. Well, and like I said at the beginning of this, you and I both got to contribute to this book. And the name of the chapter that you wrote is The Winking Elvis and a Type A Soldier. So if that makes you guys curious, you're going to want to check out. I will link that in the show notes as well. Life in the Estrogen-Free Zone. And the author is Michelle Rayburn, but there's 19 of us in total. So that's exciting. Like any other week, I want to invite you to join me over in the Moms Group on Facebook, Tending Fields Moms Group, where we talk about practical mom life and share some encouragement. On Thursdays, we share prayer requests. And on Tuesday, we're going to do a little recap of this episode and chat a little bit about that. So we would love for you to join us over there in this conversation. And as we close, Kim, would you just pray for the moms listening as we minister to the family that we have in front of us and the community around us?
Yeah, Pam, I'd be happy to. Lord, thank you for this opportunity just so I could spend this time with Pam and her listeners. And Lord, your word says that we are free to ask you for wisdom. And Lord, I can think of no other area than parenting that we need wisdom, Lord, not just daily, but for years and years to come. Lord, we're counting on you, Lord, that you would give us insight and wisdom into our children as individuals, how we might meet their needs. And Lord, also how we could just in an efficient and a way that glorifies you and ministers to our own people, Lord, that you would give us wisdom on how to manage our households and our time well, Lord, that we might glorify you, that we would know and understand times where it is time to serve other people outside of our homes and how we can best serve our families. So, Lord Jesus, we thank you. If we're moms listening, Lord, we thank you for the privilege and honor to be moms of the children that you've allowed us to have in our families. Lord, might we teach them to love you and to honor you and follow you all the days of their lives. Lord, thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you for being here.
I hope that you've been encouraged or challenged in your faith today, and that something we discussed prompts you to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord. If it has, make sure you tell a friend so they can grow along with you. And if you or a friend would like to be a guest and share about God's faithfulness in your life, please email me at podcast@tendingfields.net. Because when we tell of God's faithfulness, we never run out of stories.
Whatever is true.